Detroit Den 313. We're back. Steve and Will talking that Detroit Lions football. Before we get started, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button. Don't forget the bell icon so you don't miss any of our new content. Steve, I think today, what we're doing today, I think there's only really one way to have this thing. I think we might have similar. We tell the people we don't do these things and talk about what we got ahead of time. So tell the people what we're talking.
Well, we're trying to leave some breadcrumbs. We're trying to leave and drop some little Easter eggs for what we're going to be getting at in the NFL draft. So the last couple of days, you've kind of seen us putting out some lists, doing some rankings of each position based on what I think, based on what Will thinks. At the very least, what we want this to do is to not spark a debate, but just kind of let's see what everyone else's opinion is. You guys are going to get ours. We record it. You guys put yours in the comments. We like to read them over, see if you guys are locked on with us, see if you guys have something different, something we need to look into. So we're going to be breaking down the top 5 potential Detroit Lions draft picks at defensive tackle. But real quick, how big of a need is defensive tackle for the Detroit Lions, do you think, Will?
I think it's one of those things, again, where the answer from me is I don't know. I don't know. And here's why. It's similar to when you asked me about the cornerback and the edge rush position, because I don't know what we're going to get out of DJ Reader. Is he going to come back, be healthy, and be a dog? Or is it going to take a little bit more time for him to be ready to go from this quad injury? I know it's something that he's come back from before. Then I believe the last time he was coming back from a quad, he went to the Super Bowl and had a sack. So hopefully that's what we do this time. But besides, let's bring home that Lombardi trophy. But aside from that, if he's healthy, Alim's healthy, I don't think that there's a huge need because we have Pascal and we have Kaminsky who can also hybrid at that position too. So I don't think it's a huge need, but I think we do need a piece there somewhere in this draft because we're still not sure what we got in Broderick Martin. So Broderick Martin is going to be another telltale. If they believe in Broderick Martin and they think that there's still some time for him to get where they need to go and he's going to get there, then I don't think it's really a need at all. But if they're still a little bit unsure, then I think that we'll get a piece in this draft. So my answer, sorry that it didn't really answer the question, I guess, is really, I don't know.
You did answer the question because I'm in lockstep with you. I think the question is if both of our defensive tackles are healthy, Reader and McNeil were set, but you want to cycle in those big guys. You want to keep them fresh. So at the very least, we're going to be drafting something, I think, potentially for just a rotational piece. These guys will get on the field. They just might not be considered quote unquote starters. They're not going to be the guys you see running out of the tunnel when the defense gets introduced, but you will see them on the field. So without further ado, Will, who is your number 5 ranked defensive tackle for the Detroit Lions potentially in the draft?
In the comments, Steve, a lot of people like to call us Michigan slappies. They like to come for us and say we're just homers. We're not that.
Real quick, I've even had someone tell me that I'm not even supposed to wear Michigan gear on the podcast because this is a Detroit Lions podcast. Like, I don't know. I thought this was the land of the free. I could be wrong, but I guess not.
Yeah. Thank you.
I can carry a gun, but don't you dare wear a Michigan t-shirt on the Detroit Lions Detroit 313 podcast.
Right, man. Right. It's nuts, man. It's nuts. But I gotta go. Chris Jenkins, man. Chris Jenkins. Last year's draft, I loved Mozzie Smith, man, because I felt like he was a man amongst men. And our strength coach said he was the strongest guy that he ever coached. Mozzie Smith was just a freak strength guy. He's also said that Chris Jenkins is nipping at his coattails. Chris Jenkins is a freak. I don't think that we necessarily need help in our run game, but if we wanted to ensure when DJ Reader steps out of this thing and after his 2-year deal, we got a guy that steps right in and holds on to that run stopping spirit. I think Chris Jenkins would be that type of guy. I don't know how much of a pass rush that we're going to get from him. It's not really his thing. While I feel like DJ Reader is going to get a little bit more of a pass rush, even if it doesn't equate to sacking the quarterback, it will equate to pressure right up the middle of the formation. But I think Chris Jenkins, man, is a solid pick. I have him at number 5. He's just gonna have a solid NFL career. How you feel about Chris Jenkins?
I am ashamed of you.
Talk to me.
Ashamed of you, William.
What's up?
All that rambling about Chris Jenkins, and you can't mention national champion Chris Jenkins.
I'm sorry. I should have put some respect on his name. You're absolutely correct.
Gosh, I can't
should have.
believe it. The man like that deserves
Yeah, you're right. I can't.
so much respect that I left him off my top 5. But
unreal.
But I think you're right about what you said. I just don't see a pass rush there. And here's my problem. So for everyone who calls us Michigan Slappies, Chris Jenkins wasn't even the best defensive tackle on his team this past season.
You're not wrong.
I'm not wrong. Mason Graham, Kenny Grant were hands down better. And I've heard all the stuff from what's the head athletic trainer that left and went to the chart. I'm drawing a blank on his name. Ben.
Ben Mason.
Ben Mason.
Yeah.
He said that Chris Jenkins is one of the biggest athletic freaks to ever come through the school. Mm-hmm. Didn't really show it on Saturdays for me. He's very good against the run, but when you're playing at the college level, I need to see some pressures. Yeah. I need to see some sacks, and I just didn't see that from Chris Jenkins. So if I didn't see it in college, I'm not going to see it in the pros. And I'm not saying he has to be the next Aaron Donald. Though that's not going to happen. I understand. But I think you at least have to be able to consistently pressure the quarterback from the defensive tackle position. And Jenks just didn't do that for me.
I mean, that's fair. That was the really the assessment. You're not really getting him to get that. And it's been Herbert. I correct myself.
Herbert, yes, that sounds better.
But yeah, that's not what you're not going to get. You're not drafting him for that, man. You're drafting him to dominate the middle of that formation. You're drafting him to ensure that when those guards pull, when he's trailing behind them, following behind them, he's wrecking everything in the middle of that formation. And when you're trying to pass the ball, man, though they have to respect him in the middle of that formation. And, Aiden and those guys will be running free. So who's your number 5?
Number 5. And this guy is at number 5, not because he's dropped, but I think other players have just kind of elevated themselves on my list. It's nothing to do with this, but I hope I can say it right again. Rooker Roa. Had to get it right. Number 5 on my list. Listen, just a few weeks ago, he was probably my number 3. So like I said, it's not because he's fallen. There's just some guys that I like a little bit better. Yeah. Michigan man, in a way, comes from the state of Michigan. Don't know how he didn't end up in Ann Arbor. Ended up at Clemson. Absolute athletic freak. Yeah. And this kid has not been playing football very long. He is still very, very raw. And in our previous episodes, it's been a while since we've talked about him. I mentioned this before. Reminds me of when the Detroit Lions drafted Ziggy Ansah as a defensive end. Not a lot of football experience, but he has had, and same thing with Rook, incredible athleticism.
Yeah.
The problem with Ziggy, couldn't stay healthy. I think if Rook polishes up his game, stays healthy, I think he could be very good against the run, very good against the pass, athleticism through the charts. I think he'd be a steal. The fact that he's 5 on my list, I'm almost ashamed of myself, but yeah, he's at least on my list. So who do you got? Or how do you feel about Rook? I know he was very high for you at one point too.
I'm not even going to address how I feel about Rook because first I'm going to talk about who's number 4 on my list.
That's Rooker Roll.
And that's Rooker Roll. Rook, man, you hit it on the head. I agree with everything that you said. I think, and I say the same thing about guys just across the board. He's twitched up, man. He's twitched up. He's a guy that gets off of the football. He's got violent hands. He's still raw. He's still raw, like you said, man. He nothing but upside for this guy. He has every athletic tool that you need to be successful in this NFL. The only thing that I think that I'll add to what you said is his versatility. I think that he's a guy that you can also use similar to a Kaminsky or a Pascal, meaning that you can bump him out to that edge and you don't just have to play him at DT. I think that he's going to be a guy, man, that can really do some special things if he truly gets it all the way. He could be a guy that he might be an all-pro defender, man. That's how high I am on what I've seen from the film. He's a guy that I hope that ends up wearing that Honolulu blue. Just a special athlete, special player, man. I'm excited to just see where he goes. I'll follow his career wherever he goes.
Yeah, if he ends up in a Lion in round 2, absolutely.
Man.
I don't think I can get to the podium fast enough, but That was your number 4. Number 4 for me. I don't even think I mentioned this guy's name. I don't even think you know. I'll tell you what. Well, I'll give you $20. You can guess who my number 4 is right now.
Man,
I'll give you 5 seconds.
I have no idea. Dorless.
Wow, I owe you $100.
Wow, let's go. Talk about him.
It's Brandon Dorless. Brandon Dorless from Oregon. I've slowly started to see his name creep up on some mock drafts. I started looking into him, 6'3", 290. I think he's a Rooker clone, kind of. So this is where, before we got on the air, I said, man, I got all my guys. I just don't know where to put them. It was 4 and 5. Do I put Rook 5 or do I put Brandon Dorless 5? And it was literally like, I don't know. You can't go wrong either way. It's more of a 4A, 4B. But I think he's a little bit more polished. He's been playing football a little longer. That's really the only difference that I see when it comes to the two guys. And I really, truly cannot believe that you guessed that.
So here's why.
Do you have a camera in my room somewhere?
I got eyes on you at all time, and I got a spy.
Unbelievable.
Sarah Perkins, thank you. Appreciate you. Anyways, no, man. I've been watching him, man. And it's funny because I have him, and not to tip my hand, but I have him as honorable mention on my list. Him and Leonard Taylor was 2 guys that I have as honorable mention, but that barely slipped out of my top 5. But he's a guy that I think also, man, he's just I don't. When I got these top 5, man, I just think that they're all just a little bit better. But I could easily have switched him in for any of the 3 to me. You know, any of the 3 at the 3, 4, and 5, I could have switched him in the mix of 1 and 2. There's just no chance for me. But he's a guy, man, I think that is going to be another one, man. He's going to be a solid NFL player. And he has everything you need, man, to be successful in this NFL. I like the pick, man. Solid.
I'm going to find out how you guessed that. I'm going to find out. There's got to be something. You got to have something above me, like looking down right at my desk. I don't know. There's something going on in this world. Maybe you must have some like solar eclipse magic or something. I don't know.
Who knows, man? Who knows?
So that was your honorable mention. You already said your 4. So who do you have at 3?
Number 3, man. This is going to be, it's almost, I hate to even say this because you guys know how I am on this guy, but I have him at number 3 for good reason. So let me explain. And it's none other than the pajama Olympian himself, Braden Fisk.
Okay.
Now,
number 3,
man.
Number 3. Listen, because I got to catch this one.
And it took a lot of soul searching. It took a lot of film study. You know, I've been high on him. Steve's been high on him. We watched the film. It's been phenomenal. Here's what worries me. In the NFL, you're not playing with boys. You're not playing with 18, 19, 20-year-old boys. You're playing with grown-ass men, right? You're playing with some of the strongest men there is, right? That have honed in on their craft, hand placement techniques. They're doing special lifts to enhance their punch. Like they broke this thing down to such a science that I think that they might initially be able to slow down Braden Fisk because he doesn't have violent hands. It is the one thing about his game that I question is the violence of his hands. So speed, he's going to crush people. He's going to
know why his hands aren't violent?
Because he's too busy running past people.
He doesn't need them because he's already in the backfield when the linemen realize what's going on.
Yeah, you're not wrong, man. You're not wrong. And I'll be honest, man, he could very well prove to me once he gets drafted that he just hasn't had to use his hands like you're saying, man. I'm not above saying that that's a possibility, but I just don't see, even when he's hand fighting with guys, when he doesn't beat them, once they get hands on him, they have had a little bit of a tendency to slow him down. I don't see him as a guy who goes to move 2 and move 3. If he doesn't get you off to the snap, he does struggle to counter move a little bit, but the guy's got game, man. Like there's nothing you're not taking anything away from his game. He's not one of those guys that runs well at the Pajama Olympics and then you look at the film and you don't see it. Shoot, here we were talking about him after we watched the film way before even the combine. So it wasn't the 40 time that wowed us. It wasn't him running the drills and looking great. It was him looking great on film that wowed us, man.
Yeah, the combine just kind of validated it.
Yeah, I remember I had brought him up to you, man, and you had your list of guys, and it already had him and Rooker Roa on it. And then we watched a little bit more of him, and both of us was just like, wow, he's a dude, man. He's special. We need to make sure that we got him in the upper echelons of our list, man. So Braden Fisk, man, is he's my number 3, but that's the only reason, because of the violence of his hands.
Well, he doesn't need to use his hands because they're usually just, trying to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands. That's
That's
what
fair.
he's usually doing.
That's fair. That's
Um,
fair.
My top 3, my next 2 guys I could have flip flopped as well. Number 3 for me, I got Johnny, aka Jerzon Newton from Illinois. Where he kind of came on my radar was when Michigan played them 2 years ago. And I'll tell you right now, he was wrecking that Michigan offensive line. That was 2 years ago. That was when Michigan's offensive line won the Joe Moore Award for best offensive line. And Johnny Newton had his way with every interior offensive lineman, including Zach Zinner, that a lot of people are high on. So let's just be honest. We could be Michigan fans, but we could be realistic. Like, it was not a good game for the Michigan offensive line against Johnny Newton.
Yeah.
Constantly in the backfield, wreaking havoc on Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, JJ McCarthy. Anyone who was in the backfield was dealing with Johnny Newton. And at one point, he was considered to be a top 10 pick in this draft. But as time's kind of gone on and some other people have moved up, it's not like, again, it's kind of like my list. It's not because he's doing so bad. It's just that there's a lot of other guys at different positions, like wide receiver, corner, edge, that are doing a lot better. So I'm seeing something where maybe he gets funneled down to 29 and we get an absolute steal.
Best player available, man. Run to the podium, go get him, man. He's one of those guys, man, that I just think the brand of football that, well, let me start with this. Let's keep talking about him because he's my number 2. So we're flowing. Yep. We're flowing right into it. Johnny Newton, man, he plays the brand of football that I like. He's nasty. He's tenacious. He's relentless. He don't really give a darn about interviews and looking pretty and just all of the other things. He's coming out there to be violent. He's coming in to get into your backfields. I think that we talked about Chris Jenkins and we talked about not offering a pass rush. Johnny Newton's going to offer you a little bit of a pass rush too, right? He's twitchy, right? He's got the violent hands that I talk about. He's got a lot of agility. He's a guy that'll be able to run laterally, and if you got screen plays, he'll be able to, retrace and get back to the football or run laterally to run things down. He's a guy, man. If he's there at 29, instead of taking one of these second tier corners, and no disrespect, or not even necessarily second tier, but a corner that's not necessarily elite, a guy that's good. Why not go out and get a great football player? I think Johnny Newton's a great football player. I love to have him on the Detroit Lions. I love him at number 3 for you, Steve. Yep. And obviously, I love him even more because I got him at number 2. Remember that, Newton, if you come to Detroit.
I guess I'll throw out my number 2. It's a defensive tackle from the University of Texas. Well, I'm guessing is your number 1 if I'm dwindling my list down and seeing what you're doing. It's not T'Vondre Sweat.
Before you even say it, you guys that love T'Vondre Sweat, maybe you guys want to put together a little GoFundMe for the DUI expenses that he's gonna have, arrested for DUI the other day. So don't wish anything bad on a guy, man. But
so he's Jalen Carter 2.0.
Yeah, so he's gonna have a situation. You think
minus the production?
Before you say the name that I know that you're about to say, do you think that might make him slide in a draft at DUI arrest?
I hope he slides past 29. That's
that's
all I hope. I hope he slides either to pick 60 or past 61. I just don't want him to be a Detroit Lion. I personally don't care where he ends up. I'm not high on him. I'm talking about number 2 from the University of Texas, horns down. Horns down, Byron Murphy. I hate the University of Texas. I've always hated them. I lived in Texas for 5 years. It's a miserable sports city. All I heard was Cowboys and UT Texas football. Drove me absolutely nuts. I will never cheer for Texas, but was kind of crazy because one of my favorite college football players of all time came from the University of Texas, but this was before my hatred of Vince Young. So Byron Murphy, I let bygones be bygones. My feelings toward your college are gone. I don't care if you're from Ohio State, Michigan State, Texas. Byron Murphy in a Detroit Lions uniform does things for me in my pants.
I like it. I like it,
I
man.
think he's obviously your number one, so we could just keep rolling with it, correct?
Whoa, whoa,
Yeah,
whoa.
yeah. Well, let's
Well,
go. I want my
let's
$100 back. I bet you $100 is
no,
Byron
no,
Murphy.
negative, negative. So, but yeah, you are correct. Byron Murphy, man, you nailed it. Byron Murphy is a guy. I keep using the term, but it's what excites me when I watch film. Twitched up. He's twitched up. Him and Johnny Newton are guys who get off of the football. They get off of the football violently. They get rid of you and they get in your backfield. Tackles for loss, sacks, pressures, just disrupting things. If you get Byron Murphy, he's going to disrupt things. That's one thing that you can guarantee. Johnny Newton, Byron Murphy, I'm running to the podium. And to be honest, Braden Fisk, I would run to the podium as well. I like that pick too. But those guys, man, I love them. I love that he's in that slot for you. You know where he is for me, obviously. Just a great football player, man. I might even get some Texas gear, man, if he comes to
Stop it.
Detroit.
I will.
I might get a Honolulu blue, or maybe I'll put a little Longhorn on the. Who knows, man? You never know.
Not on this podcast. No, but real quick, something I wanted to say about Johnny Newton. What popped in my head is, just to go back just a minute. We got a little inside information too. You know, Kirby Joseph is someone who's been kind of lobbying for Johnny Newton. Yep. So if I'm Brad Holmes and I'm doing homework and I don't want to use one of my top 30 visits on Johnny Newton, not to say that he doesn't deserve it, but if I can use that resource somewhere else, I just pull Kirby Joseph in and get some inside information. Hey, what's this guy like in the locker room? What's his work ethic? Is he the last one in the locker room or the weight room? Is he the first one in the weight room? What's he do? Is he out partying on Saturday nights, Friday nights? Like, is he studying his playbook? That kind of stuff. So a little inside information there, I think could be a little valuable.
Yeah, I like it, man. I agree, man. He do got the inside track on him. Those guys are 2-1 the same. I think that they're kind of very similar players. I could easily see them flip-flopped either way. But that's my list, man. I'm pretty sure I know who you got as number one.
I'm not gonna bet you $100 on this one. now that we've already broke even. Yeah, obviously it's Braden Fisk. Look,
yes, sir.
It's gonna be hard for me to put any purely defensive tackle above him. I'll tell you this. I kept this in my back pocket while you were talking about him. You might be right about his hands, but what I see is a lot of people who are very high on Jared Verse. There's many plays Braden Fisk is getting to the quarterback before Jared Verse. And I get it. He's a defensive tackle. He's a little bit closer. His angle's a lot better. But this guy is explosive off the line. And I've said it before. If you're a Michigan Wolverines fan and you're familiar with the name Mason Graham, that's going to be someone we're talking about next year. We're going to be comparing him to Braden Fisk in this year's draft. He is – I think it's him and then a huge gap. Byron Murphy. That's how good I think Braden Fisk is. Like, he is a physical problem. Went to the combine, and all it did was validate everything we watched on tape. Talk about one of his last games at Florida State was against I forget who they played, but it was Louisville in the championship game. And one of his last plays was a sack. Like, this guy had a high motor nonstop the whole game, put it away, and then they kind of got screwed by the College Football Playoff Committee. But that's a story for another time. Braden Fisk, again, this would be my number one overall player, and probably was, until we signed DJ Reader, and now our needs have shifted and changed a little bit, so I have to adjust my list accordingly. Yeah. Defensive tackle is not a huge need. It's not. But if you draft a Braden Fisk at 29, he's going to get into the game. I see him being in there in passing situations. I'm not sure who comes out. Probably DJ Reader, depending on the down and distance. Mm-hmm. I think he's good enough to play edge, just like Rooker roll. And we've kind of thrown that out there. You and me just off camera talking about it. Can he play edge? You know, what if something happens with Marcus Davenport? Is that someone we can just slide in there? Very, very versatile. Won't be a day one starter, but he'll get on the field consistently, along with a lot of other D tackles. But that's just because the Detroit Lions kind of shored that up when they signed DJ, Alim coming back. Like, we just got some solid starting D tackles.
Yeah, you nailed it, man. That was going to be my one question for you, but you already answered it. I was going to ask you, do you think that he can bump out and play that edge position or play that end position? And you answered it, and I agree with you, man. I think that he can. If you're telling me that guys like Kaminsky and Pascal can do it, I think that he does nothing but enhance it when he bumps out there, man. Just a bigger body. When you're talking about what people are looking for in a Darius Robinson when they bump him out there, I don't know that Fisk is going to be a guy that plays without his hand in the dirt, but I think that he's going to be a guy that can offer you that speed and agility and able, ability to bend off that edge that you're looking for in those situations where you want to go with big bodies up front and rush that quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, defensive tackle in this draft, I feel like these five that we all mentioned, maybe 6, are like the cream of the crop. I think there's a big gap between everyone we've talked about today and then that next group of guys. I wouldn't even like begin to want to rank those, but I feel like you go from Chris Jenkins, where you have him, to Braden Fisk. Like we were pretty in step with the top 5, just kind of shuffled around in different order. I don't know. I don't think it's a hugely deep defensive tackle class, but if they want to take advantage of the really, really good ones in this draft, I think every name we mentioned today would be very, very solid.
Before we get out of here, man, and obviously we're not doing a mock draft, and I'm not going to return the favor, so don't try it. Gun to your head right now. You got 5 seconds, and as soon as I ask the question, I'm going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, I can't get a proper countdown.
You got Xavier Liggett on the board. You got Braden Fisk on the board at pick 29. Who you taking? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Braden Fisk. I'm locked in. I actually could answer that at 5. I'm not getting off my podium of wanting defense first. That's just all it is. If you would have said another name, I won't tell you who it was.
Yeah.
But I would have probably picked another name because I want a defensive end.
I dig it.
But between a wide receiver and a defensive tackle, I got to stand on my island. I'm a man of my word. Defense first in this draft.
I like it.
Wide receiver 2nd round. Maybe we trade. I don't know. There's a lot of things that can happen.
Oh, you're not wrong to me. We're deep. We're deep in that receiver position, man. So
never been wrong in my life.
Take it easy.
All right, guys. We've talked about all the defensive tackles. Not all the defensive tackles. The top 5 in our opinion. Leave some comments. Let us know who we left off. Throw your top 5 down there in the comments. Hit that like button if you're new here. Stick around. Subscribe. We'll be back later with some more content.
Peace.